Hi, I'm Angela Hart.
My name is Frank. I'm Robert with PK Move.
And today we're going to warm up before all the fun parkour movements to come.
Today we're going to be working on Plyo jumps. Today we're going to be taking a look at the cat balance.
So let's begin our warm up. I brought a chair with me. If you're indoors, I would make sure that you have a chair handy just in case you need it. Let's take a big inhale up and push it down as you exhale. And a second big inhale up and push it down. Let's take one more big inhale. And as we lower the hands, let's lace the fingers and let's gently roll the wrists, working through range of motion and mobility. And then go in the opposite direction. Let's move the elbows around, letting those wrists continue to be flexible. Circle those elbows, open and close them a few times. Shake it out. Let's take the arms up to shoulder height and let's make tiny little backward circles with the hands. Imagine you're tracing the circumference of a glass and then allow those circles to get larger as you trace the circumference of a dinner plate, and then larger still until you're tracing the inner circumference of a hula hoop. And then change the direction, circling forward inside that hula hoop. And then start to make it smaller, like you're circling around the dinner plate. And then as you lower the arms, take a few rolls backwards through the shoulders, and then a few rolls forwards through the shoulders. And then let's bring hands to the hips, feet hip width apart, and let's circle the hips clockwise and allow that circle to get progressively larger until you're circling your pelvis, circling your hips as big as you can, and then change the direction into a counterclockwise circle, nice and big. And then start to make that circle smaller until you're circling the pelvis, really tight, small circles. All right, we're gonna start to work on the lower body. This is where you might wanna have your chair handy. If you're using the chair, let's lift the opposite leg so you have plenty of space. And let's simply point and flex at the ankle. And then let's circle the ankle in one direction, and then the opposite direction. And then place the foot on the floor. As you squat, take your hips back and down, arms come forward, and then rise. And let's reset, hands on hips or one hand on chair. Lift the same knee, and let's open and close at the knee joint. And then pause, and then from the knee, let's circle in one direction, and then the other direction. And when you've circled equally in both directions, lower the foot. Take the hips back and down, arms come forward into a little squat, and raise. Reset one more time, hands on hips or use your chair, and let's open and close at the hip joint, moving into flexion and extension, and then pause, and then let's circle the leg at the hip joint in one direction, and then in the other direction. And then let's lower the foot to the floor. Let's take the hips back and down, arms forward, and let's take 3 little body weighted squats. Letting those arms raise up to shoulder height as you drop the hips. And let's shake out the legs. That we now are the other side of our chair if we need it for balance. Bring that opposite leg up, point and flex at the ankle, and then circle in one direction, and then in the other direction. As you lower that foot to the floor, take your hips back and down, arms forward, and reset. Let's open and close at the knee, working on that extension and that flexion at the knee joint. Pause. At the knee, circle one direction, and then reset, foot to the ground, hips back and down, body weight squat. Good. Last set. Chair for balance if needed. Let's open and close through the hip joint. Working through that hip flexion and extension. And then when you're ready, let's circle. And then the other direction. And when you're ready, foot to the floor. Hips back and down, arms forward. Let's take 3 more body-weighted squats. Think about maybe increasing your depth with each repetition. Now from here, let's just start marching. Starting to bring that heart rate up a little bit, warming up the body. And then as it feels good, tap the opposite knee with your hand. Now if we want to start bringing our hamstrings into some more flexibility, think about, instead of tapping the knee, think about tapping the opposite shin. And you could even think about tapping the opposite toe, keeping those legs more extended. And when you're ready, come right back to stillness. Now let's use our chair for a moment. From here, let's go ahead and go all the way down, sitting in our chair, arms forward. Let's pull the arms back as we lift the knees, getting those abs nice and strong. Lower the feet, lift, squat, and raise. Again, let's have a seat. Pull back as you lift your feet. Lower your feet as you lift your arms and stand. A little squat, tapping the chair with your bottom. And again, sit, lift and pull, lower and lift, and a little squat. And then march it out. Awesome job. If your heart rate is not elevated and you're not breathing a little harder, then I would just continue these movements until you're ready to move on to your parkour.
First thing we're going to do is we're actually going to work on just understanding how to be more plyometric with our jumps. All I want you all to do first is just try just jumping up and down, like so. Now that we understand how to be a little more reactive with the ground, what I want you to focus on next is try to enable your arms into your jumps. So, when you're coming in, I want you to have your arms behind you, jump, throw your arms up, then, just before you land back onto the ground, have your arms come behind you and jump up again. So, now that you have a better understanding of how to use our arms, we're going to go into trying to jump forward with it now. Key things to remember is you want to stay on the balls of your feet. As soon as you make contact with the ground, you want to explode back out. And remember to have your arms in the proper position before going into the next jump. Just before I land on the ground, grab my arms behind me, nice and set. Now that we have a better understanding of our plyo jumps, we're going to try and connect it with our precision landing. We're just going to go over the bails for the precision landing, which is undershooting. Use undershooting whenever you have too little momentum going in, where you can't stay on top of the ledge that you're landing on, and overshooting. You overshoot when you have too much going in to where you end up just falling forward. What I want you guys to do is just practice some of these first and catching your feet back underneath you with each one. So now that we have a better understanding of our under and overshooting methods, we're going to try and use that in line with our plyo jumps. The goal right now is to have you guys jumping into your plyos and either under or overshooting with her. And that time, I didn't have as much jump going into it because I was focused too much on my arms. So that means I need to add in a bit more power to try and stay on top. Look at that. What you can do now to challenge yourself is try to do it from further distances. An example like this. I'm about probably 3 or 4 steps further away than where I started showing you guys the first demonstration. So now the goal is to try and see how much I can engage with my leg power, along with my arm throw, as well as being able to reach to try and go with precision. Another way to challenge yourself, try lying down, then entering into the plyo position. Cat balance, or QM balance, is an application of the QM crawl on narrow surfaces. But before we dive into that, let's quickly review the QM position. Quadrupedal movement is a foundational exercise and should be drilled every day. Its versatility is rooted in its stability. Let's review these key concepts from last time.
Your back is flat and parallel to the surface. Shoulders are supported above the wrists, hips above knees, and hands are always flat on the ground for maximum surface area and grip. Opposing hand and feet move contralaterally together in alternating paces. while knees and elbows are connected, moving in a single line. Don't crowd. Moderate your paces by not taking too large of steps. When we crawl forward, one hand and foot will be behind the other. If you lose your balance, these trailing limbs can be sent out to catch yourself. Once you're stable, these limbs move to the front and continue the crawl. Now let's make this a bit more difficult and take it to a curb. If you don't have a curb, you can simulate one easily with a line of chalk or tape. As implied by the name, quadrupedal movement on these surfaces requires rooting and balance. Cat balance variation of the QM, where you don't have the luxury of space, hands and feet are going to be in line, while knees may flare out a bit. Now, it's a good idea to practice walking into and back out of the QM, because control is key, especially through transitions. Whether an imaginary line, up on a curb or beyond, the structural concept will remain the same. Now to keep things moving, and because putting your foot down on the ground isn't always what you want out of the exercise, one shorthand for stability while in the QM balance is simply holding your leg or arm out and elevated for balance. It's like you've got your own little cattail. Practice this and see how long you can go without losing your cat balance. So long, meow.
The fun part about parkour is that you guys can mix different movement patterns together to interact with your environment while still developing your creative side with it as well. So I want you guys to try mixing and matching my precision jump with a style that you either learned in this video or your previous video.
Now it's time to cool down. Let's take that right arm up, big vertical stretch, and let's side bend over to that left side. Hold for a moment, feel the entire length of your right torso lengthen. Come back to upright and release. Take your left arm up, big vertical stretch, and let's side bend to the right. We want to feel the right side of your rib cage move closer to your hip as you lengthen out the left side of your torso. Awesome. And let's come back to center and let's lower it down. Let's take the right arm across the chest. Let's gently pull it back. And then imagine you have an itch between your shoulder blades. Take that right hand to that itch. Left hand guides that right elbow. And we can always bring that side bend back into the stretch if that feels good. And as we release, just shake it out. Let's bring that left arm across the chest. Feel that stretch. Breathe into it. Soften any areas of tension with your exhales. Let's take that left hand overhead. Bring it between your shoulder blades. And take that right hand to the left elbow. As we guide that left elbow to the right, we can always bring that little side bend back into the movement. Feeling that nice stretch through the entire length of that left side. Awesome. And release and shake it down. Now I want you to bring your right arm over your left. Give yourself a hug as you round your back. And then open your chest. And then left arm over right. Give yourself a hug, round your back. Inhale, open through your chest. And release. So we're going to start to just rotate our spine a little bit. Hands on your hips as you rotate through your spine. Now let's sweep the right arm back and then the left. And as we bring the right arm back, let the left hand touch the hip. You'll notice as I come back through center, I'm softening into my knees and I'm extending my legs as I twist. Let your gaze follow your hand. So the whole spine rotates. And then bring the opposite hand toward the shoulder and then release. Let's step the left foot back into a lunge. Let's go as far into that lunge as we can, since we do have some support for our balance. And let's think about dropping our hips as we keep that left heel lifted. And let's tuck the pelvis under so we get a nice stretch along that left hip flexor. If you don't need the chair, you can always have both hands on your hips as you simply drop a little deeper into that stretch. Now we're going to take a little step forward with that left foot so we can lower the left heel, straightening that right leg. And then we're going to bend to the right knee as we lift that right toe. And we can always reach down, hold on to the toes, pull them back a little bit, giving the hamstring a nice stretch along the back of the leg. As you release, let's bring our hand to the chair if we need it. Let's draw that left knee forward, taking a hold of that left foot or ankle. Let's pull the heel towards the butt, and let's draw those inner thighs together, giving that hamstring and quad a nice stretch. Here we are really focusing more on the muscle of the thigh, that quadricep. Feel that muscle soften and lengthen. And when you feel that that muscle has been adequately stretched, let's release. And let's come to the other side of our chair. We're going to step the right foot back. Go as far as you can, nice big wide lunge. You have that chair for support that allows you to go a little deeper, to explore some depth without the fear of falling. Again, we want to tuck the pelvis under. Think about scooping your tailbone underneath so you get a nice stretch through that right hip flexor. Step that right foot forward, closing the distance between the feet so you can lower that right heel. Bend into the right leg as you pull your hips back and down, drawing those left toes up so we get a nice stretch along the back of the left leg. You can always reach down with the left or right hand and pull back on those toes, giving that hamstring a nice stretch. See how it's nice having that chair there. And then as we release, we're going to bring our feet together. We're going to draw the right knee forward. We're going to hold on to that foot or ankle. And we're going to pull the heel up towards the buttocks. See if you can bring your inner thighs a little closer to each other, giving that right thigh a nice long stretch, stretching out the muscle we call the quadricep. When you feel that muscle nice and long, let's release. Let's take a big inhale up and press it down. Again, big inhale up and press it down. One more time, big inhale up and press it down. Thank you so much for joining us in parkour today.